They thought it would be funny. A cruel little prank to liven up their Friday night, set up the quiet, bookish woman from accounting on a blind date with the city's most eligible bachelor. "She won't last 5 minutes," one of them whispered, stifling laughter as they handed her the details. Emma wasn't glamorous. She didn't own designer dresses, nor did she walk into rooms expecting to be noticed. She worked hard, cared for her aging mother, and rarely thought about herself. Still, when her coworkers insisted, she agreed. Maybe, just maybe, fate was giving her a chance. She arrived at the upscale restaurant clutching her thrifted clutch, nerves buzzing in her stomach. Across the table sat Daniel Pierce. Yes, the Daniel Pierce. Single dad. CEO. The man who had entire magazine spreads dedicated to his success. Emma almost turned back. Clearly, this was a mistake. But Daniel didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. Instead, he leaned forward, studying her as though she were the only person in the room. "Emma, right? I'm glad you came." Over dinner, she spoke about caring for her mother, about the small joys in life, her garden, her books, the way her neighbors' kids lit up when she baked cookies. Daniel listened. Not politely, intently. By dessert, the room hushed as Daniel stood, lifted his glass, and said words no one expected. "I don't believe in accidents. Tonight I found someone real. Emma, would you give me the honor of seeing if this could be forever?" The laughter from the corner table died instantly. For a moment, the restaurant seemed to freeze. Forks paused midair, servers stood still, and Emma's coworkers, those who had orchestrated that joke, stared wide-eyed, their smirks wiped clean. Emma's heart thundered. A proposal? Surely, he was teasing. But when she met Daniel's gaze, she found no mockery there. His eyes, steady and kind, held something far deeper than charm. She stammered, her throat tight. "You don't even know me." Daniel gave a small smile. "I know enough. I know you speak of your mother with more love than some speak of themselves. I know you find joy in giving, not taking. And I know, in the span of one evening, that you are the most genuine person I've met in years." Gasps rippled around them. A bold statement, coming from a man surrounded daily by power, wealth, and people desperate for his attention. Her coworkers shifted uncomfortably, realizing the cruelty of their scheme was unraveling before their eyes. What was meant to humiliate had instead revealed Emma's quiet strength, and Daniel's clarity of heart. Emma shook her head, overwhelmed. "I'm not what you think. I'm just ordinary." Daniel reached across the table, his hand warm over hers. "Ordinary? Emma, you've done what no boardroom, no gala, no business deal has managed. You've made me feel at home. And for a man who's been lost for a very long time, that's extraordinary." Tears stung Emma's eyes. Not from embarrassment, but from the startling realization that someone saw her. Truly saw her. The restaurant erupted, not in laughter, but in applause. And the ones who had set the trap? They sat silent, faced with a truth far more powerful than their cruelty. Kindness had turned their joke into destiny. Emma barely slept that night. The proposal replayed in her head, too sudden, too impossible. By morning, she convinced herself it was a fluke. A grand gesture from a man used to commanding attention. Surely, he'd forget her by Monday. But Monday came, and so did Daniel. Not with roses or promises, but with a simple text. "Can I pick you up after work? There's someone I'd like you to meet." Curiosity overpowered caution. She agreed. And when she slid into his car that evening, she expected champagne, maybe another extravagant surprise. Instead, he drove her to a quiet neighborhood, pulling into a driveway where a little girl sat on the porch, braids swinging as she read a picture book aloud to her stuffed rabbit. "Emma," Daniel said softly, "this is Lily. My whole world." The girl looked up, her smile bright and fearless. "Hi. Dad says you like cookies. I saved you one." She held out a chocolate chip masterpiece, edges slightly burnt but clearly made with love. Emma's throat tightened. Not from nerves this time, but from the warmth that radiated from the child. Lily tugged her hand and said, "Come see my room. You have to meet Sparkle, he's my unicorn." As Emma followed, Daniel lingered behind, his voice low. "I don't care about appearances or headlines, Emma. What I need is someone real. Lily deserves someone kind. When I saw you last night I knew I'd found that." Emma blinked, her defenses wobbling. She'd been mocked, underestimated, overlooked all her life. And yet here was a man, wealthy, powerful, admired, who wanted nothing but her kindness. And maybe, just maybe, she wanted to believe him. Emma told herself to be cautious. Men like Daniel Pierce didn't belong in her world, the world of late bills, second-hand clothes, and weekends spent caring for her mother. But Daniel was persistent in the gentlest way. He didn't sweep her into ballrooms or shower her with jewelry. He showed up with takeout when she was too tired to cook. He helped her fix the leaky faucet in her mother's kitchen. He asked questions and actually listened. Yet the whispers at work grew louder. Her coworkers, embarrassed by their failed prank, now spun it into gossip. "She's using him for his money. It won't last, she's just a charity case." Emma overheard, her cheeks burning. One evening, after another round of hushed whispers in the break room, Emma confronted Daniel. "I don't fit into your life," she said, frustration trembling in her voice. "People think I'm using you. And maybe they're right. Look at you, look at me. We don't make sense." Daniel didn't flinch. "Emma, I've sat in boardrooms filled with liars in $1,000 suits. I've been surrounded by people who smiled at me while waiting for me to fail. None of that rattled me." He stepped closer, his tone firm but gentle. "But the thought of losing you, that terrifies me." Emma's defenses cracked. His world was polished, hers patched together, but maybe that was the point. Maybe he didn't need someone who dazzled. Maybe he needed someone who grounded him. Before she could answer, Lily burst into the room, tugging Emma's hand. "Daddy's making spaghetti. Come help me stir?" And just like that, in the simplest of moments, Emma felt something stronger than fear, belonging. Emma stood in her tiny kitchen late one night, staring at the sink full of dishes. Her mother dozed in the next room, Lily's laughter still echoing faintly in her memory from that evening's visit. Daniel had offered to help with groceries, with medical bills, kindness that should have felt like relief but instead felt like a weight pressing on her chest. What if everyone was right? What if she was nothing more than a charity case in his world? Her phone buzzed. A picture from Daniel, Lily, fast asleep, clutching the cookie tin Emma had baked for her. Beneath it his message. "She won't let go of it. Says it smells like home." Emma pressed a hand to her mouth, tears spilling over. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about status. It was about a little girl who finally laughed freely. About a man who, despite all his success, ached for something real. The next day, she met Daniel outside his office, nerves rattling but heart steady. "I need to say this," she began. "I can't give you wealth or a picture-perfect life. But I can give you honesty, loyalty, and all the love I have to give. If that's not enough." Daniel silenced her with a gentle shake of his head. "Emma, that's everything." And right there, on the bustling sidewalk, he pulled her close, not with the grandeur of a CEO, but with the sincerity of a man who'd finally found his missing piece. The crowd around them faded. What began as a cruel joke had blossomed into something neither of them expected, a family. Because sometimes, destiny doesn't knock politely. It bursts in disguise as a blind date meant to humiliate, only to heal. Autumn slipped into winter, and what began as a single evening turned into something neither Emma nor Daniel could deny. Weeknights once filled with loneliness now rang with Lily's chatter, Daniel's laughter, and the comforting clatter of Emma cooking in the kitchen. It wasn't glamorous. Their date nights often meant movie marathons in pajamas or board games that Lily inevitably won. Daniel, the man once pictured on magazine covers, could now be found crawling on the floor, helping Sparkle the unicorn battle imaginary dragons. And Emma discovered a side of herself she'd long buried. A woman who could laugh until her stomach hurt, who could dream without fear, who could accept love without apology. The world still whispered. Headlines speculated, coworkers gossiped, strangers judged. But Emma stopped listening. Because Lily's sleepy hug at bedtime, Daniel's quiet hand on hers during Sunday drives, and the peace in her mother's eyes when she saw Emma finally happy, those were the voices that mattered. One snowy evening, as twinkle lights glowed in the window, Daniel knelt again, not in a grand restaurant this time, but in their living room, Lily holding a handmade sign that read, "Say yes, Emma." Tears blurred her vision as Daniel whispered, "You turned my world upside down, and gave it back to me whole. Marry me, not as a CEO, but as a man who finally knows what home feels like." Emma laughed through her tears. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." And just like that, the cruelest of pranks had transformed into the sweetest of beginnings. Because kindness, once planted, has a way of growing into forever.